great basketball.
Defender to the monster, Jason Tatum.
We covering pre and post game back on this channel.
Welcome into Celtics Postgame Live, everybody. I'm your host, Justin Lowe, alongside my co-host, Robby Haytayan, where the Boston Celtics absolutely kind of obliterate the Atlanta Hawks on the road tonight. No Marcus Smart, no Malcolm Brogdon. Obviously, Celtics yet to find time for Time Lord and Danilo Gallinari, but the Celtics get the job done in a huge blowout. When a night where Tatum and Brown weren't the stars of the game, out came the bench, outscored the Hawks bench by about 1 million, and the Celtics were able to pick up their 8th straight victory of the regular season. I'm Justin Lowe. That's Rob Haytayan. Rob, give us your thoughts on this game before we kind of deep dive into tonight's game.
I want to say it was our most impressive win of the year, but I feel like I'm saying that every game at this point. Right. I mean, the Celtics were great in a game where we were shorthanded. The bench really stole the show. They were the stars tonight. Hauser had 15 off the bench. Cornette gave us 15 off the bench. Pritchard had 14. So, I mean, that makes life easy for Tatum and Brown, and those two can go for 22 and 19 respectfully. And the C's can get out to a 25-point win. Also, something we talked about last post-game show, Ian and I. Brown only 23 minutes tonight. Tatum only 32. So, you know, a great win on the road, and what could have been a tough one. This team made it easy for us.
This could have been disastrous. Like, as I have trouble with my head saying it, this could have been disastrous. You and I talked about this in the pregame. It's not so much that we were doubting the Celtics necessarily, but at the same time, like, you know, no Marcus, no Malcolm. We've had trouble against the Hawks, specifically in Atlanta before. You know, all signs were pointing towards, you know, potentially the Celtics win streak getting snapped tonight. But, you know, we just thinking right, I guess. We saw this similar against the Detroit Pistons, and then we said, well, the Pistons are a good young team, but at the same time, it's the Detroit Pistons. No, these guys know their role. These guys are ready for the opportunity. A guy tonight that we saw 10 minutes of was Justin Jackson, came in and got a block. He only took one shot, but we know he's a good 3-point shooter when he gets it going. Just guys that don't get a lot of minutes, and you know, we saw them step up big tonight. Obviously, Peyton Pritchard, 15 points. Luke Cornette also 15 points, or 14 points for Pritchard, and then 15 for Luke Cornette. Sam Hauser just continues to stroke the ball, 5 of 6 from the floor. He started out 4 of 4 and 15 points, and he played 27 minutes tonight off the bench. So obviously, that's just big time for him to have guys like those guys to be able to step up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, last year, I think the thing that really separates this year's team from last year's team is that we got shot makers coming off the bench. We didn't have that last year, and it really showed in the playoffs. If you were to tell me Jason Tatum shooting 3 of 10 from 3, Jaylen Brown shooting of 1 of 6, I would think the Celtics got handled throughout the course of the game, but that was just not the case, and it really hasn't been the case anymore with this team this year. Grant, 4 of 7 from beyond the arc. White shot the ball 2 of 4, 5 of 6 from Hauser, 4 of 6 from Pritchard. I mean, I could go on. I mean, even Cornette knocked one down in garbage time, but I mean, this team is playing with confidence. They're playing with pace. They're shooting the ball extremely well. And this team it's going to get dangerous if they can continue to do this. And if they can figure out this defensive thing. Only allowing 101 points against a pretty solid Hawks team is pretty impressive without your 2 anchors in Smart and Rob Will.
And we welcome in Ian Angelo. Ian, kind of good timing here because we're just kind of getting going here, not really diving into anything too deep. But what were your initial thoughts on tonight? Obviously, no Brogdon, no Smart. Time Lord and Gallinari still remain out for this team, so those can't really use it as an excuse. But still, 4 key players out for the Celtics tonight, and the Celtics were still able to obliterate the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this was huge. The bench came up absolutely clutch tonight. I mean, you saw it the first half. They were 9 of 10 shooting at the half. I mean, Sam Hauser was just hitting everything. Peyton Pritchard looks like he has his confidence back. He's hitting everything. I mean, Luke Cornette has basically become like the greatest big man of all time. If you think about it. I mean, what other big man is I mean, we haven't seen a big man reverse dunk it since like DeAndre Jordan back in his prime. So honestly, I think Luke Cornett is better than prime DeAndre Jordan, but that's besides the point. But yeah, the bench came up huge tonight, and Tatum and Brown, they didn't really have it going early. So it was super important that the bench came up clutch because they were the ones that kept us in this game the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And something I do want to touch on here is, as great as the bench was, just because Tatum and Brown's shots weren't falling, I feel like normally, they're not on shooting the ball, so they kind of check out. We've seen that in years past, but this year Tatum only had 19 points, which is the season low, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, so plus 28 plus minus. So overall, Tatum had a very solid game. If you figure he knocks down 3 more of those threes, gets to the line a little bit more, he's finished with right around 27 points, nearing a triple-double. So, outside of scoring the ball, Tatum played well. I thought Brown, same thing, 22. He did a great job of getting to the rack. 3-point shot wasn't falling. Justin, you look at Tatum and what we saw tonight. Are you a little bit upset with how much he's been settling over these past 2 games? Because I will say, as great as this win has been, and as great as we are winning, you want to see Tatum succeed, and he's been playing at a high level. But 1 of 9 from 3 last night, and now 3 of 10 from 3. Would you like to see Tatum get to the basket a little bit more?
I love to see Tatum get to the basket a lot more. Now I'm a broken record at this point, and Rob, I say this to you almost every day how elite this Celtics team is, and how elite Jason Tatum is when he's driving to the basket. It's the contact and gets the foul, or whether it's a driving kick because one defender has to slide in. I'd love to see Tatum get more aggressive. He's at his best, and again, the Celtics are at their best when he's aggressive. But at the same time, if Jason Tatum is having a rough shooting night and he could rebound the ball 8 times, assist on a regular basis 6, 7, 8 times, get a steal, get a block, and he's making the right plays, right? And the effort is there with Jason Tatum, and I think that's where we talked about on this week's podcast episode that went up earlier this afternoon is Jason Tatum is playing at an MVP level. Now, did Jason Tatum have a good shooting night tonight? Absolutely not, but he still played at an elite MVP level. He was doing other things on the court that impacted the Celtics winning this game, whether that was getting a rebound, whether that was setting a screen, assisting. The Celtics were on fire tonight. Huge credit to the bench. Now and then Jaylen Brown tonight, 22 points, got going late, had an early start, then kind of mid-game, ran into foul trouble. That's why his minutes were so low. And then started getting going. He had 5 rebounds. I think he had a steal and a block, or he had something going on the defensive end. So these guys, Tatum and Brown, more specifically Tatum, playing like high caliber players, but even though they're not shooting the ball great as of the last 2 games, it's just really good to see that there's more than just shooting. There's more than just scoring with these guys.
For sure. I think that's been the difference this year. Ian, we talked about it a little bit on the postgame show last night, but I want to touch about it again. We talked about the big man. We talked about, obviously you're not going to get 15 points from Luke Cornett every night. I give him credit. He had a great game, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 4 blocks against a team that has a really good big man depth with Collins, Capella, Onyeka Okongwu. So, he was going up against some pretty good big men. Do you think it's obviously we saw the report today? Celtics could be shopping around for Jakob Poeltl. Do you think that these C's should just kind of roll with what they have for the time being until Rob gets back, or do you think even with Rob back, this team could use a little bit of big man depth?
I mean, you can never have too much depth at the big man position, and the Celtics have seemingly been lacking it over the last few years. I mean, again, as great as Luke Cornett is, off the bench, I still. Like in a playoff series, I really don't think you want to get, how many minutes did he play tonight? He played 25 minutes tonight. If we're having 25 minutes of Luke Cornett in the playoffs, I don't know if that's going to be 100% in our favor, just depending on who we play, obviously. But at the same time, I mean, if you can bring him Jakob Poeltl and you don't have to give up a whole lot, then I say pull the trigger 100%.
Right.
We saw what happened with the Derek White trade. I mean, we gave up Langford, Richardson, and a first-round pick, and it's working out wonders right now, as we saw tonight, because Derek White has become a huge part of this team. So, I guess it depends on the trade package, but if we can get Jakob Poeltl, I think the Celtics should pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I mean, at this point, it's funny because you do these post-game shows, and especially last year, obviously we got into a groove of it towards the end of the year. You have so much good to talk about, but when we're playing at this level, you almost sound like a broken record. It's kind of like our offense is historic right now. We have the highest offensive rating of any team in NBA history. If we can sustain that, will be the question. But I mean, you're thinking the only problem we have right now is our defense. And once our defensive anchor comes back, rebounding, I mean, that's what is so great about this team is that, they don't have any weaknesses. And our only weakness has been our defense, but we're waiting for our guy to come back in Rob Will. So once Rob Will comes back, I mean, it's kind of like the waiting game. And, we said this last year. You got to wait. Pump the brakes because there's a long season. We made our final assessment 25 games in last year before we kind of officially put a stamp on what we thought was going to happen, and we were wrong, obviously, right, with our streak kind of hitting in February and towards the end of the year. So there's a lot of work to get done, Justin, but definitely things to be happy about, right?
Oh, 110%. I mean, look, you're finding ways to win, and I think that is like the most crucial part about this is the defense is playing elite, a high offense, but at the same time there's still stuff to clean up on, but you're also finding ways to win. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum had a rough last two games, most notably Jason Tatum, but the Boston Celtics found ways to win. In that fourth quarter against Oklahoma City Thunder, the Celtics were down 15 in that second half. They could have very much easily hung their heads, put in the bench unit in sayonara. The Celtics win streak ends there. Instead, guys like Peyton Pritchard, Marcus Smart, Derek White came in and really brought the Celtics back into this game. And that's, the crucial thing is you get these guys coming off the bench, giving you sparks. Luke Cornett, Sam Hauser tonight, unbelievable. He started the game off 4-4 shooting from the floor, finished 15 points, and I think 5 or 6 rebounds as well. That's huge for this team. That's huge for guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart when they're struggling from the floor. And, I am concerned with the rebounding, but at the same time, I understand, in a few weeks we get Rob back, but at the same time, I'd love to, again, sound like a broken record, I'd love to figure this out before Robert Williams gets back. Yeah. But at the same time, you work with what you have. And, Luke Cornett, and Blake Griffin, again, I said this on the podcast, maybe not the best, backup center rotation you have. But at the same time, they're getting things ball games, so I can't complain about that too much.
Absolutely. A name you did mention we haven't talked about yet, brings us into the player spotlight. As you can see the totals of the seasons in front of your screen right now. Today's player spotlight goes to Derek White. No Malcolm Brogdon, no Marcus Smart, no problem. Derek White, 16 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 of 4 from beyond the arc, 6 of 11 from the floor. Finish it off with a plus 17 plus minus. That is Derek White's second player spotlight of the season. Guys, I think that is, there's so much to talk about here with Derek White. Last season comes in, couldn't really find a role in this offense, wasn't really a great shooter, goes into the offseason, works on a shot, really has been shooting the ball really well, playing great defense. Ian, how has Derek White changed his game over the offseason to make a real impact to start this year?
I mean, when it came to Derek White last season, I don't think he ever got a chance to settle in with this team. I mean, he came over here at the trade deadline, immediately thrust into a team that was already in a winning mentality, that was going on a crazy run. There were times where, we saw what Derek White could be on this team last year, but it was never consistent enough because he just, he wasn't really implemented into the system yet. So I think the fact that he had an entire offseason with the team, he had an entire training camp with the team, he had an entire preseason. I mean, this is just important for him, and this is the player that Derek White is. I mean, he's always been this good of a player, even when he was with San Antonio. I mean, he could be a starter. I think I said this last time, but he could be a starter in, 80% of the teams in the league. He could be a starting point guard for. So the fact that he's on the Celtics and he's playing his role is incredibly important for the Celtics.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it best. he could be that's a starting point guard, starting two guard on a lot of teams. And when we're healthy, he's our seventh or eighth man off the bench. You'd figure, depending on who we keep in the starting lineup when Rob gets back. But I mean, you nailed it right on the dot, Ian. It is such a luxury. I mean, Doris Burke said on the broadcast, if you did watch the ESPN broadcast, which I did, it's such a luxury to have a guy like Derek White on your team. Does the dirty work when you're healthy, and when guys are ruled out, you can step up. Played a huge role. Really did a phenomenal job at running the point. 10 assists, like I said, only 2 turnovers, which is, you're always looking for those turnovers numbers to be low from your point guard. It just feels like this offense is really, really flowing at a phenomenal rate. And I do think something that is to do with that is the off-ball movement. Justin, I texted you during the game. It feels like there's very rare you're seeing this team go stagnant on offense. And
Right.
I don't know, it's a credit to that. You give the credit to Missoula there or credit the players, but I mean, how has this off-ball movement elevated the Celtics play this year? Because it's been phenomenal.
This off-ball movement has elevated the Celtics to 12 wins in their first 15 games. They function really, really well, and they're feeding good off each other. And you know who's really, really good at moving off-ball? It's the guy who had 15 points off the bench tonight, your guy, Sam Hauser. He's good at creating his own space, catch and shoot. He's starting to work off the dribble. Derek White is another phenomenal guy. He's always been one of those guys where he's great on ball. Malcolm Brogdon, who's mainly used to working on ball his past year and a couple years in Indiana. But don't forget, back when he was with Milwaukee, he was a rookie and, 2 second-year, third-year player. But he did a lot of off-ball work in Milwaukee, too. So for him to come in off the bench and work off ball is huge. A guy we're missing right now who's tremendous off ball, Time Lord. And he's still not back yet, and the Celtics are still rocking and rolling, so I can only imagine what the movement is going to be like on and off ball with Robert Williams in the lineup. Look, that's high-level offense. You're not going to get anything. Something that, when we looked at Philly the first, 6-7 games, the reason why Philly struggled so early up a little bit is because it was all iso ball. Guys were standing around. My turn, your turn. Celtics faced this similar last year and the year before, where it was Jaylen Brown's turn. Then it was Tatum's turn. Oh, wait, Smart standing in the corner. Smart literally complained. There's only so much you could do when you're standing in the corner waiting for the ball to be passed you. Like, that's no longer what the Celtics are. That's no longer their identity on either ends of the floor. And that's really encouraging to see.
Yeah, well, I think we've done a phenomenal job picking up the pace too off the rebounds and steals. It feels like we're getting that rebound and it's just quick up the court. You're getting the defense tired.
Right.
That's huge in this regular season plays. Obviously the playoffs, you're going to slow down a little bit. That's when you're going to rely on guys like Tatum and Brown more often. But, like I said, can't complain. Through the first 15 games, you could maybe pick out some defensive possessions here and there throughout the games. But other than that, this team's been near flawless. However, we do continue to go out on the road Friday, 8:30 against the New Orleans Pelicans. Ian, what do the Celtics got to do? I believe Zion is up in the air. He is day-to-day as of right now. What do the Celtics need to do against a pretty solid New Orleans team? They just beat Chicago. They're up 124-106 with a minute left. They're going to be 9-6. What do the C's got to do against New Orleans to get the win?
It's going to be interesting. I think it depends on if Zion plays or not. I mean, granted, you still have to do the same things, but obviously the same things that we've kind of just been saying, just continue to, improve on the rebounding end of things, on the defensive end of things. Just make sure that your perimeter defense is there because, the Pelicans have a lot of really good players. Even, I don't know, is Brandon Ingram still injured or is he back?
No, he was active tonight.
Yeah. He's back? Okay, that's what I didn't know if he was injured still or not. But Brandon Ingram is really good, and he gave the Celtics a work last year. I remember when what was that? Was that MLK Day when we played New Orleans last year?
It was. Yeah, it was one. It was a noon game. Yeah,
it was a noon game, and he went off on.
That was at home. I think that was at home.
It was. I was there
because we worked him. We worked him on the road. Yeah.
We were getting worked in the first half, and then we came out second half and blew him out of the water. But Brandon Ingram had himself a night.
Exactly. So Brandon Ingram's really good. So we have to make sure that we're able to contain him a little bit. But just continue to do what we're doing. This is kind of the opposite of the 2020 season when we were doing these post-game shows, because before it was just talking about how bad the Celtics were and, what they need to get better with and all that stuff. And
now
the
it's how can
Celtics,
we make
now the Celtics are so
maintain it.
good, and it's like,
Right.
what else are they going to do? I mean, it's kind of nuts, but yeah, I think the Celtics have a good chance against New Orleans. They just need to play with high energy. That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, so when it comes to New Orleans is also another fast-paced team. You got guys freak athleticism on that team. That Herb Jones is amazing. You got Alvarado, you got Zion, Brandon Ingram. Valanciunas now be a great test for a guy like Luke Cornett, who just had a very solid game against Clint Capella and John Collins. And then on top of that, I wouldn't doubt seeing minutes due to the physicality of the New Orleans Pelicans, and that is not a joke, Ian. I seriously, because the thing with Blake Griffin is he's a very physical guy. So in situations where you might be lacking physicality, you're going to want to throw in a guy like Blake Griffin. So they got to match the physicality, and they got to be able to keep the pace that they've been going at. I mean, you just mentioned it, Rob. The Celtics have been running up and down the court on both ends and long. They're going to have to continue that on the road. It's a late game, 8:30 p.m. Zion versus Tatum. That's going to be.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, because Atlanta is a place we used to struggle at playing in Atlanta. In New Orleans has kind of been the same story for the past couple of years. Every time we've gone in there, they've given us a good game. So it's going to be interesting to see how we play them. But, I mean, you guys make both great points against New Orleans. They're a big, physical, fast-paced team. They got a couple guys that can score the ball really well off the bench as well. Alvarado is going to give you problems. Devontae Graham is another one of those guys that can just go in there and just give you 20 points if you're falling asleep on them. So you got to go in there, handle business and take care of it. Because right now, Celtics are rolling. They're 8 games. And, Justin, I said this on the podcast with you. Teams are going to want to end this streak, right? Like the Celtics are the hottest team in basketball. When you see the Celtics, you're circling them right now because, we're approaching double digits in a row, double-digit wins. So New Orleans is going to want to be the team to knock off the C's. Celtics are 9-1 in the last 10, 8 straight. They're the defending Eastern Conference champions. They got the front runner for MVP. You got every reason in the world to want to. They're playing with house money, every team against us, right? No one expects them to beat us. So that's how I think New Orleans is going to play. They're well coached, solid defense, got a bunch of scorers. So that should be a good game. Marcus Smart is expected to play. He missed tonight's game, second straight game. He played against Oklahoma. Sorry. Missed tonight's game with a bone bruise. It's the same bone bruise, same injury from Game 3 last year against the Heat in that Eastern Conference Finals series. It said it was a little bit puffy, so they're going to give him a rest. He should be good to go. Brogdon's still up in the air with that hamstring, I believe. So we'll see what happens with them.
I want to know what games are on Friday, because why wouldn't Zion versus Jason Tatum be on national TV?
Is it not?
Oh, no, it's not. I don't think so.
So, I mean, two of the youngest, brightest stars in the league, I'd say maybe outside of Luka versus Jason.
You know what's on primetime? Milwaukee, Philly.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that'll do it. That'll do it. That'll do it. I was going to say, because why would they not? I'm guessing Boston and New Orleans would have been the alternate of Bucks and.
Yeah. Well, we'll have you guys covered Friday for post-game show following the final buzzer. Like I said, the Boston Celtics take down the Atlanta Hawks 126-101. Your top performer from Boston was Derek White, 16 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 block. He's 2 of 4 from down the arc. And over there on the Atlanta Hawks side of things, Trae Young did his thing despite the loss, 27 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, along with DeJounte Murray. He had tagged along 19 points, 5 assists. And you can't forget JB, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 10 of 17 from the floor. The Celtics advanced to a league's best 12-3. Thank you guys so much for joining us in the Celtics Postgame Live. We will have you covered, like I said, following Celtics Friday night in New Orleans. I'm Rob. Next to me is Justin. And down below, can't forget Ian Angelo. Guys, thank you so